drop that.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This is going to be part 2 of how to diagnose a fueling issue on your N54 powered BMW. I'm going to link to the first part of this series where I diagnose my low pressure fuel sensor under the intake manifold being faulty. It was stuck at a constant 55.7 no matter what. So in this video what we're going to try is changing out the low pressure fuel sensor, seeing how the car behaves any different, and also seeing what type of pressure we're reading after changing the sensor. And maybe with the new sensor we can find that my fuel pump may be getting tired. It's got 180,000 miles on it. As far as I can tell, it is original to the car, or maybe it was changed like halfway through its life or a long time ago. So I've ordered one. You know, maybe I don't need to. I'm doing it proactively here. But you know what, if this doesn't take care of it, then we've covered all our bases and we're going to go after the fuel pump next. But first let me show you the new part. So the part number is going to be 13537622231. And it's a Bosch sensor. And it looks like this. Just like that. So that's what we have to install. I'm going to show you guys how to replace this. There's a couple other videos on YouTube showing you how to do it. My goal will be to remove this with the least amount of effort ideally. I'm not going to take the intake manifold out. I'm going to take out as few parts as I need to be able to get clear access to the actual sensor. And then we're going to reset the adaptations and then monitor the fuel pressure using MHD flasher to see how it's looking. And we'll go for a test drive to see if the car is performing any differently, if we've rectified the issue, or maybe during data logging we'll see a drop in fuel pressure indicating low pressure fuel pump struggling or being tired. So let's start by popping the hood and finding out what needs to be removed to get to the sensor. So we'll start by removing the two T20 Torx that hold the snorkel in place up at the front. Next I want to remove this line here, squeezing on the sides. It's a vacuum line. And then we'll come back here, push in, pull this clip here to remove it. And since there's a vacuum line connected, we'll just get it out of our way, like so. Now I'm going to go for the DCI filters here. Now to be able to get enough flex or enough wiggle room to remove the charge pipe, I'm going to remove the diverter valves. We'll just place those on top of the engine. Now we want to take out the charge pipe. I'm going to just get this clip right off and out of the way. Comes off pretty easily. Now we'll get this out of the way. So that's down and out of the way. Now we can go after the throttle body. To do so, I'm going to get a ratcheting 10mm wrench. I'll get you zoomed in on the throttle body as I remove it. So now there's a vacuum line on the side of the actual throttle body that we have to squeeze to remove. It clips on right there. Lastly, there is a harness on the side of it. Remove that. You can take the throttle body out of the way. Now I'm zoomed in on a bracket that's below the intake manifold, like so. And you can slide it back and down out of the way. Now there's a couple harnesses on it. If you can see, I'm going to try to unclip these. As you can see, I was able to remove the two harnesses. I'd consider that adequate room. As you can see, I'm zoomed right in on the actual sensor. Okay, I was able to remove that. Upon further inspection on my existing one, the piece of plastic that's normally there to hold it in place doesn't appear to be there. I'm not sure why. So maybe someone's already played around with that, but I was able to just pull it out. But otherwise, I'll demonstrate on the new one. What I was basically trying to do is get the pick tool in here to relieve the pressure and allow me to pull the harness out, or even you can come in from the side and pry as like such. Get in there like that, and then you can pull the harness out. On mine, I think it's broken here, and it didn't just happen now, it's been like that for a while. So anyway, that's how you get the harness out. Okay, so I didn't have the appropriate a socket for removing the old one. I think it's a 24, but you can use an open-ended wrench or a adjustable wrench if needed, but you got to support the bottom of it, which I'll do now. Yeah, that didn't take much at all. I'm not sure if any fuel is going to spray out of here. I would think so. So take some caution when you're removing it. So that started. I didn't even really need the vice grips. It was so loose that didn't really help. It wasn't necessary, but anyway, not a bad idea. Or if you have a wrench that can get on there, or however you want to support the bottom of that. Be prepared for that if you're doing this yourself. You get a slight spray. It's a misty vapor, so any sparks or anything could be dangerous. Be careful. It was short-lived at least. And just be careful when you're removing it. It's removed now, as you can see. That's it right there. Let's take a look. Let's compare the old versus new. Someone's already broke that clip, so someone's been in there or done something to remove that in the past. There's the old one. Here's the new one. I believe this is an updated part. It's bigger, thicker. Now, the old one had an O-ring on it, and the new one is missing an O-ring. It just has a space for an O-ring. So I got to make sure I put a new one on there. But those are the differences. This should be an updated version of this. They've made some changes. It's got like a compression fitting there. So I'm going to dig up an O-ring the same size as this and get ready for reinstallation. So this is what I have available. These are hydrogen nitrile O-rings, so I believe these are an upgrade anyway, or they're compatible. So I had to use this O-ring here, and I believe that's 5/16 by 7/16 by 1/16, so far as I can tell. But you may want to double check that before you order it. You can always reuse your existing O-ring potentially if you get stuck, but I wanted to put a new one. So, and I made sure it wasn't rolled over. I just put it on. It was kind of slightly tight fit, but it still rotates and still can conform if necessary. And I'll put some fuel around that before I try to screw it back in. So now, just gonna wait for one of these drips. Get this O-ring nice and wet, lubricated, so that it will go on smooth. Looks like the O-ring went in its channel, no problem. So it's a 27 mil. I happen to have a really huge adjustable wrench, so I'll use that here. I'm using a set of vice grips because there's not much room in here. So that's now good and snug. Because of the way it fits in at the end, the compression fitting, you need to turn a little bit longer. You need to turn a little bit more before it loosens up or snugs itself up. But that's good and tight. Nothing got marred up or anything. Everything still looks good. It's hard metal, so I used a set of vice grips. Ideally get a 27 wrench that's not too long, and maybe find a better way to support the base of that, but really it's not too super tight, so adjustable wrench or vice grips is acceptable if you don't have a lot of tools. That's good and snug now, so I'm going to reconnect the harness. We'll reconnect it and we'll start the reassembly process. Alright, so we're all back together now. Next step is going to be to reset the adaptations, and then we'll see what the fuel pressure is looking like after starting the car. And yes, in case anybody noticed, my DCIs are dirty. I gotta buy a K&N refresh kit to clean those, so I'll definitely get around to that. And just do a quick visual inspection after you're done. Take a look underneath. See if there's any leakage or any signs of issue. On my side, I'm not finding anything. Things look good. Looks like it's nice and sealed. But just keep that in mind, that it wouldn't be a bad idea to quickly prime the key, maybe before you put your intakes back in place. Take a look, make sure it's dry, but mine appears to be dry. Here we're in the car now, keys on the on position. Gonna connect the tablet, go to codes, and we want to reset adaptations. Choose adaptation value to reset. So we're going to do high pressure fuel system. Now we'll go back in and go to the monitoring section. And now we're getting 60.1 psi. And that was just with a prime. The car hasn't started yet. Let's start the car and see what it does. Started right up. So it's supposed to target 72 psi. See, that seems normal. Let's give it a bit of gas and see what it does. You can see as you give it gas, it fluctuates, it jumps around. That's normal. It's responding as you would expect. So yeah, that's pretty good. I believe the ECU uses pulse width modulation because the car has a returnless fuel system, so it's always trying to target a particular pressure value. I'm going to turn the key off and see if it settles out. It's kind of moving around. The fuel pressure regulator will hold it for a while, probably drop to about 60. And then hold so that you get a good restart. I've already done my fuel pressure regulator. So that definitely resolved one issue, which was inaccurate low pressure sensor reading. So now I'll take it for a spin and push it, and if it still hesitates, then we'll see. We'll data log, and does that actually drop down below 50 psi? Then we just found out that the fuel pump is on its way out, and that's why I got the hesitation, and maybe this won't fix it. But the idea is, on this car, for whatever reason, I guess because it's new technology, who knows, but these can fail without triggering a check engine light. They can hold at a particular value, they can read high, read low. It's not so important to the car. I think it focuses on the high pressure fuel system being able to keep up. But ideally, you want your low pressure fuel sensor to report accurately. And really the car doesn't use it a whole lot. But if I drive it now and there's no hesitation, that means my fuel pump is still healthy. But like I was saying, it uses pulse width modulation, kind of like an injector, and it will cycle power to it and try to use the exact amount of fuel given the situation. And it's returnless, so if it didn't do that, then it may get too much fuel. So that's why it targets a particular PSI. It's targeting 72 ideally. Under the circumstances, it will do its best to try to stay there. When it was just stuck at 55.7 no matter what, that was a sign that my low pressure fuel sensor went bad. But the car kind of drove relatively normal, all things considered. But what can happen is you won't find out via your low pressure sensor that your fuel pump may be failing, and therefore you can have trouble. So I'm changing my fuel pump regardless, because I want to do it for maintenance. I got it for a really good price, $94, a brand new fuel pump. So I'm putting it in just because it's one less thing to worry about considering the mileage. And this, I consider this a maintenance item, but maybe it'll fix my issue. I paid $37 for this. So I'd recommend, if you guys take a quick look underneath your intake manifold and you still have the brass looking low pressure fuel sensor, maybe upgrade to the silver one like we put in today. It's a new part number. So next we're going to go for a ride, data log, and see how the car responds. So I'm just driving around now, normal driving, and it's doing a good job of targeting 72 PSI under all circumstances. See, I let off the gas there. Feeling very smooth. I think my idle's a little smoother. Could be placebo, but it's feeling good. So it's doing a really good job of targeting exactly 72 psi. It's always busy trying to do that. Constantly adjusting the pulse width to the fuel pump to get as close to there as possible. So now we just got to see if under load it can hold at around 70, or if it drops because the fuel pump can't keep up with demand. So I'm going to drop it down to second gear around 2500 RPM, and we'll watch the tablet, see how it holds up. Okay, so I'm back from the drive, and we have a data log to look at. It felt better to me. For all intents and purposes, I think the adaptation reset and whatnot didn't feel any hesitation or bucking or jerkiness, nothing. It kind of just felt smooth. But at the same time, something still feels slightly off. Maybe I have to drive on it for a while, but regardless, let's look at the actual log here. So fuel pressure, 72.2, 72.7, etc. Pretty good. This is me doing a log. I drop it into second gear. You can see the gear here. So second gear, I go full throttle, accelerator position, and I run it through. Builds boost shoots up, and we're in a low gear here, so we're not going to make full boost, but we start to dip once we get past around 4,000 RPM. We start to lose fuel pressure. 67.7, 66.7. At 5,000 RPM we're at 58, and dropping. And I'm still at full throttle here, going. 6,000 RPM, still going. I let off at around 6,000 and change, but at 50 psi, low pressure indicated. That is at the absolute lower limit of what is acceptable for the low pressure fuel pump. And I don't know if that's a sign of a tired pump or me kind of maximizing the pump due to my tune. But at the same time, that I think is okay. The car can work with that, but I'd like to see that higher. And there's going to be a part 3. I've already ordered the pump, and I'm just changing it with an economical replacement, but it's going to be all brand new, just to see with a fresh fuel pump how do things change here. and does my car feel different after doing so? The only way we found out the truth here is by replacing that low pressure sensor, but I don't like that. We're still well in the power range there, and we're at the absolute bare bottoms lower limit of what's acceptable before the car would throw a hard code for fuel pump or basically cut fuel, or there could be a major problem. The high pressure fuel pump is going to be working extra hard to build up the pressure if it's dropping that low. It's not meeting demand as far as I can see here, but the car drives and still pulls hard if you're up in that RPM band. But I don't like the dip, and then as soon as you let off, it instantly says, oh, okay, I can recover here. You let off the gas and it quickly tries its best to recover because you're not demanding as much of it. So I think that kind of tells me that the low pressure fuel sensor failed. I honestly felt the difference. I felt the smoothness. I think I fixed the main problem that I was after. I'm happy with that. But there's going to be part 3 to see changing the low pressure fuel pump with a lot of miles on it. How does this change? This is just a real world second gear pull. How do things change for us here? And what kind of improvements can we see? Can we get that line to stay flat? Does a car feel quicker doing so, or does it feel the same, but maybe the high pressure fuel pump's working a little less? What changes for us? Or, you know, like I felt like things felt pretty good, but does it feel like amazing? Does it pull even harder or feel really healthy after changing the low pressure fuel pump? So look out for part 3. This is going to be the end of part 2. And we've made progress here. We actually see realistic low pressure readings. That's good, but I don't like how the low pressure fuel pump is dropping PSI. Maybe all along, even a brand new pump won't change that. We'll find out. Maybe I should have upgraded to something a little more intensive, because my car, so far as I could tell, was making quite a bit of wheel horsepower, up in the 380 range, something along those lines. So one thing that we see for sure is we don't have a catastrophic failure of the low pressure fuel pump. It's not hard lining. You don't have like a V shape in there where it drips down hard. That would be a sign of a fuel pump that's in trouble, about to fail. Maybe it will completely conk out and your car won't start. If you see this line, just a straight V, and then maybe it recovers, it's dying out. It just basically cuts out and comes back to life. That would be bad. That would be urgent. This is just, in my opinion, a sign of a tired pump, or a pump not adequate for the tune on my car and the demands of the car. I don't think I'm asking too much of this pump. I think it's just tired, but we'll find out. If you're wondering on your car, after, let's say, 100,000 miles, should you be proactively changing your fuel pump just for maintenance? Perhaps you could do the same thing I've done here. And in part 3, if I show an improvement here, then it will be a definitive answer as to that pump should be changed for maintenance. But the point of this video was to go into replacing the low pressure sensor and indicating what kind of improvements you can have by moving to that new sensor and actually getting realistic readings. I felt the difference. The car felt smooth. I didn't have any hesitation, second gear, 2000 RPM on the 2 or 3 pulls I just did. So that was good. Anyway, look out for part 3. Thanks for watching. Wow.